Hi, so we have a problem here that asks us to graph the following system of equations. So our first equation is x minus 4y is equal to negative 1, and our second equation is 2x minus y is equal to 6. Now first things first, we have to know how to graph linear equations. Now in order to graph these equations, we have to put each of our equations in slope-intercept form. So for equation 1, not write in red. So for equation 1, we have x minus 4y is equal to negative 1. So we have to put each of our equations in slope-intercept form. Basically, we have to solve each equation for y. So when we do this, to put this equation in slope-intercept form, we subtract x on both sides. So we have negative 4y is equal to a negative x minus 1. And then we divide everything by negative 4. So everything divided by a negative 4, well, that gets us a y is equal to a negative, positive 1 over 4x minus 1 over 4. Now, we have our slope and our y-intercept for this particular equation. So our slope is a positive 1 over 4x, and our y-intercept is a negative 1 over 4. Now, for the second equation, we do the same exact process. 2x minus y is equal to 6. Subtract the 2x from both sides, so we have a negative y is equal to a negative 2x plus 6. Divide everything by a negative 1. We have a y is equal to a positive 2x minus 6. So for this equation, your slope is 2. And your y value, or your y-intercept, is a negative 6. Let me make a correction. On the last equation, we said our slope was in 1 over 4x. It's actually a 1 over 4. So now let's go back to our graph. Alright, so in order to graph the first equation, we put our y-intercept at a negative 1/4. So your y-intercept should be somewhere right down here. And your slope is a 1 over 4. So you're going to rise up and you're going to go to the right 4. So if you rise up 1 and then you go to the right 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now if you were to keep following the same pattern, your line will look something like this. Okay? Now to graph the second equation, you can do your slope and your y-intercept. Well, your y-intercept is a negative 6. So you would go on the y-axis to a negative 6 and plot your first point. Now your slope is a 2. In other words, it's a 2 over 1. So that means your rise would be 2. You would go up 2 and to the right 1. And that is where you would graph the second line. Hopefully your graph looks a lot better than mine. Alright. Now another way you could do this, instead of putting your equations in slope-intercept form, you can actually go ahead and find the intercepts. The x and y intercepts of those equations. So let me go back up here real quick. X minus 4y is negative 1. So that's equation 1. And equation 2 was 2x minus y is equal to 6. So if you wanted to find the intercepts versus doing the slope and y-intercept, that works too. So remember, to find the x and y-intercepts, you have to do the x-intercept and then the y-intercept. So you have 2 steps on each equation. So for the x-intercept, okay, so for the first one, the x-intercept, remember you let your y be 0 and you solve for x. So in our equation right here, if y is equal to 0, Well, that means this negative 4y just goes away. So that means in that one, all we have left with is an x is equal to a negative 1. So on this part, we have an ordered pair of an x value of negative 1 and a y value of 0. So for the same process, the same equation, we're going to find the y-intercept. Okay, so for the y-intercept, we're going to let our x value be 0. So if your x is 0, we have to solve for y. So if our x value is 0, then that means we have a negative 4y is equal to a negative 1. Divide both sides by a negative 4, you get your y value, which is a positive 1 over 4. Alright, so now we have an ordered pair of 0, positive 1/4. So let me highlight or circle or square off these ordered pairs because these are going to be very important. For the second equation, I do the same exact process. X-intercept so for the x-intercept, remember y is 0. So that means I have 2x is equal to 6. Meaning if we divide both sides by 2, we get an x value of 3. Okay, so now our ordered pair is 3, 0. And then for the same one, we find the y-intercept. So for the y-intercept, if our x value is 0, well then that means we would have a negative y is equal to 6, indicating that our y value is negative 6. So we have an ordered pair of 0, negative 6. Alright, so let's go ahead and graph these guys. Let me put a picture in there for you.